Welcome back to the Broad Street Sports Podcast featuring Zachary Chavy, and today I'll be continuing giving my tier rankings this week for Week 3, and I will be giving my picks for Week 3. I missed last week, but I'll try to get back into it this week. All right, so I'm going to be going through 32 through 1, and just based off how the season's gone so far, I'll be giving you my rankings. So starting at number 32, I think this is consensus throughout everyone. It's the Carolina Panthers. They have been dreadful so far, like absolutely terrible. They're a dumpster fire of a franchise, and it's not even like funny at this point. Bryce Young, I mean, I don't know if I feel bad for him or if he just really sucks. Like, he has been terrible. The team as a whole has been terrible. Their management is disgraceful. It's actually sad to see. And Bryce Young just got benched after 2 weeks, and Andy Dalton will be taking over the team. So it'll be interesting to see if it was actually Bryce Young or if this team's just a dumpster fire. Because I don't know if you've seen Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield have both led their teams to 2-0 starts. And that's not a great sign for Carolina because the rumors, they've been called the place where quarterbacks go to die. And as of right now, that's what it looks like. Moving on to the next team. This is a tough one, but I would probably say this is tough. I'd probably say the New York Giants. I know they're 0-2. They had a much better week last week, but at the same time, they weren't able to win the game, and honestly, they weren't able to get really anything going. Or they were able to get touchdown drives, but the defense played all right, forcing field goals, but they just let the Commanders drive down the field most of the game. They just didn't result in touchdowns, but I just think it's still not going to be a great season for the Giants. Malik Neighbors looked really good, had his breakout game. I know it's only week 2, but played really well, had over 120 yards, had a touchdown. Played real well for them. And then the Commanders, it was Brian Robinson and Jaden Daniels passing and rushing. They didn't have any touchdowns, but both of them had big running games, and that's the reason they were able to win the game. And honestly, that's probably why I have the Giants where I had them. All right, moving on to the next team, I have the Denver Broncos. I mean, they played another okay game against the Steelers, only put up 6 points. Bo Nix, looked a little bit better, still had some turnovers, but at the same time, the Broncos are rebuilding, and they know that they are rebuilding. So there's not much you can really put into factor that. But at the same time, there's got to be something they can do. Like, their team is really not that good. They won't be able to, I think, contend with most of the teams they play this year. But overall, Bo Nix has a lot to improve on. I know he's a rookie, but not really much to talk about with them. And then the final team, I don't know, this may come to a shock to a lot of people. It may not. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They choked the lead against the Dolphins, then played terrible against the Cleveland Browns, only put up 13 points to a team that got destroyed last week by Dallas. Trevor Lawrence has looked terrible ever since he's got that contract. I still don't know why they gave him that contract. He plays well, or he wins one playoff game where they were down 20 points, and he threw 4 interceptions in the first half. That's absolutely insane to me, and that's why I have them where they are. They've been not great this year, and their record represents that. Moving into the top 27 now, 21 through 27, I have the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, they are also in 2, but I just put them a little bit over the Jaguars because at least they were able to play a little bit better than them in week 1, but Anthony Richardson played terrible last week, had 3 interceptions, and lost to a Packers team that was starting Malik Willis. Josh Jacobs had a good game, but at the same time, the Colts, they got to figure out what's up with Richardson because he's great rushing the ball, but his passing has so much to improve on, and that might be not him finishing his rookie season. But at the same time, if they view him as his franchise quarterback, they need to find a way to him improve when it comes to passing the ball. Moving on to the next team, I have the LA Rams. The Rams, I just think that they played good against the Lions, lost in overtime. But the game they just played against the Cardinals, That was insane. Kyler Murray looked like an MVP in that game, and they just got absolutely destroyed, 41-10, I believe. That's still insane to me. They finally got Marvin Harrison involved in the offense, and I'll get to the Cardinals in a little bit. But just talking about the Rams, I'm putting them at the spot. Not only did they not play well, but it's going to get even worse for them because not only did they not have Puka Nacua in that game, Cooper Kupp got hurt in the first quarter. They originally thought it was going to be an IR injury, but they said he could be back. But it's at least he'll be out maybe the next 2 weeks, and that just brings them no receivers whatsoever. They're down to DeMarcus Robertson, Tyler Johnson, and Tutu Atwell. They're already missing Higbee. Cairo Williams is going to have to play a big role in offense, and I just don't see the Rams doing much the next couple of weeks. I know they got the Niners who are also dealing with their injuries, but at the same time, there's not much you can really do about that. Moving on to the next team I have, it's the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, Will Levis cost them another game, and it's plain and simple. He had a terrible turnover once again. He tried to flip the ball to Tajay Spears, which was a terrible decision, and it led to the Jets getting the turnover, and that was in the red zone, even worse than the turnover last week, and that's pretty much what cost them the game. He had a nice pass to Calvin Ridley, I think, for his first Titans touchdown. But really, other than that, Levis didn't play the greatest game. And because of him right now, they're 0-2 instead of possibly being 2-0. And I'm really surprised because he played great down the stretch for them last year, and they built a great roster for him this offseason. So we'll just have to see what they do from there. But moving on from that, at number 24, I have the New England Patriots. I know this might be a little higher than some people think, but they've played some really competitive ball the past 2 weeks. Taking the Seahawks to overtime in a great game there. Ramondre Stevenson looked good. Brissett, he's not the future, obviously, but he did what he needed to do done so far and got the ball to Hunter Henry, which was good. As long as they can get the receiving game involved in this offense, they can compete possibly with a lot of teams. They might not win games, but they'll at least be able to compete. And I feel like Gerard Mayo has changed the culture of this team, has been able to, like I said, give a full culture reset. And I think if they can continue doing what they're doing, they might shock a lot of people this year. That's just me. Moving on to the next team I have the Miami Dolphins. I mean, might be way too low for them, but at the same time, they didn't look great against the Bills last week. And on top of that, they at least lost Tua for the next 4 games. Prayers for him. I hope he's okay. But, I mean, at the same time, they just signed Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference for them. And they don't have, I think I looked at their schedule. They have, some teams they could possibly beat and some teams that they might have troubles with. But at the same time, taking your quarterback out of the offense, trying to do a whole new system with a whole different quarterback or trying to do the same system with a different quarterback, there's always struggles within that. And you can see it probably in the first couple of weeks. And by the time Tua could be back, who knows if they'll even be contending for the playoffs. So we'll have to see what happens there. Moving on to the next team, I have the Washington Commanders. I have the Commanders Jaden Daniels got his first career win, even though he didn't put up impressive stats. He had over 200 yards, had a good completion percentage, but there was really a kicking game for Austin Seibert. He had 7 field goals, got all 21 of their points, and I really think Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback. He's great rushing, but he's, like I said, with Richardson, he at least has a little bit of passing. Daniels, because this is his first year, but if he can develop that deep ball that he had at LSU, the Commanders could be very dangerous possibly now and very much in the future if they're able to build a sustainable offense for him. So we'll have to see how that goes. And moving on to the final team, in here, I have the Chicago Bears. The Bears, they got a week 1 win. That's great and all, but at the same time, Caleb Williams didn't look great in week 1, and it proved even more this much in week 2. I'm not trying to say he's a bust here, but at the same time, I saw it from the beginning. I knew the Bears, I was telling everyone that the Bears should have drafted Marvin Harrison at number one, kept Justin Fields, and see how he played out for one more year, and then you can go draft a quarterback if you really need to next year. But at least you build a foundation of receivers and stuff like that, and then you can use the number 9 overall pick on an offensive lineman, and it's already shown. He has no protection whatsoever, and when he tries to get out of the pocket and makes plays, it's absolutely dreadful. He had 2 interceptions that were balls that he should have not thrown. And you can just tell on the sideline, everyone is frustrated. DJ Moore is frustrated. Romo Dunze, a guy you drafted number 9 overall, can't even get the ball. He got it twice, I think. Caleb Williams needs to realize that he is in the big stage now. It's no longer, people are paying attention to him even more than they did in college because people still think he's the next Mahomes, and I just don't see it. Like, if he can't prove this week that he was worthy of number 1 overall pick, I would be very much concerned as a Bears fan. All right, moving into the top 20. At number 20, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders had a very impressive comeback win against the Ravens last week, and they just were able to win the game. Devontae Adams finally formed a connection with Gardner Minshew. He finished with over 100 yards. Brock Bowers had a great game, 9 catches for 98 yards. That was a good game for him. That was probably his best game as a rookie so far. I know it's week 2, but he was able to play well, and he could be a very good threat for them this year. And they were just able to play good defense down the stretch. Max Crosby continued to show that he is a monster on defense, and they were able to stop Lamar and the Ravens at the end of the game and got themselves a very impressive win. Moving on to the next team, I have the Cleveland Browns. I think the Browns, even though they got the win, they just stand no threat against any of these teams in the AFC. Deshaun Watson's not a good quarterback, and he will continue not to be a good quarterback, I believe. I think this might go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. They gave up way too much for him, paid him way too much guaranteed money, and at the end of the day, they need to realize that they messed up, and I think Jameis Winston, even though they won this game, I really could see Jameis Winston starting by midseason, and I would really consider it because Deshaun Watson is not a good quarterback for Kevin Stefanski's system, and he's just not a good quarterback in general. They think he still has something left from Houston. He doesn't. But moving on to the next team, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers played themselves a very impressive game on defense once again, and Justin Fields did what he needed to do on offense, and they're 2-0. Not much simpler than that. The defense, you know what you're going to get out of them, but at least they can get at least okay offense. That's all they really need. And if Justin Fields can win again this week against the Chargers and go to 3-0, that would be very huge for them. And I don't know if they would even consider starting Russell Wilson at all the rest of the season. All right, moving on to the next team I have. It's the Green Bay Packers. They had a very impressive win on both sides of the field against the Colts, forcing 3 interceptions on Anthony Richardson and then sustaining a run game against them was very good. And it shows that the Colts, back-to-back weeks, they've had a guy go for at least over 130 yards rushing. So anyone who's playing the Colts in the future knows their game plan to run. They could run heavy on them because they look terrible stopping the run. And I just feel like they've played well so far, and they played well in week 1, just didn't get the win, and they played great in week 2 and got the win. So we'll have to see if Malik Willis can hold down the fort for Jordan Love. And Jordan Love, there's a chance he could come back this week. In my opinion, I don't think he should, but it should be interesting to see what happens because if Malik Willis can at least lead them to a decent record, they have a very good chance of making the playoffs. Moving on to the final team in the top 20, I have the LA Chargers. The Chargers, they're 2-0. Harbaugh has looked great. For the first time in a while, Justin Herbert looks happy playing the game of football because he has a coach that knows his abilities in playing football. He knows how Herbert likes to play. He knows the mindset of Justin Herbert. Herbert is playing well, very good so far, but the main story of the Chargers so far is J.K. Dobbins. He couldn't even stay on the field the past 2 years with, I think, back-to-back torn Achilles, but now he's running back-to-back 120-yard games. That is very good for him. I'm very happy for him that he's able to get a second chance, get a fresh start, and he's proving why he's a very good running back. So But the Chargers 2-0 impressive start. The reason I don't have them higher is they haven't beat like the most impressive teams. They beat the Panthers, and then the Raiders are an impressive team. I just don't view them as a threat to any team in the AFC. All right, moving on to the top 15. At number 15, I have the New York Jets. The Jets, they didn't play their best game week 1 and it showed, but then week 2 they were able to have a nice bounce back game. Aaron Rodgers looked a whole lot healthier in week 2 and was able to get it to his running backs, receivers, and they just played a good style of offense, and then the defense they came through when it mattered most. So a good win for the Jets, and they're playing tonight against the Patriots, where I expect them to win. And if Rodgers can stay healthy and they can continue building chemistry throughout the year, but especially with Tua going down, the Jets could very much jump up to second place in this division. Moving on to the next team I have, at number 14, I have the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks were able to get another win against the Patriots. It was a hard-fought battle, but they were able to get the win at the end. Jason Myers came very much through and was able to knock that field goal in for the win in overtime. But it showed that DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba could be a very dangerous duo. They both had over 100 yards, combined for over 200, and played a great overall game. And they were able to get it done. They're 2-0 right now, and the Seahawks, especially with the Niners dealing with injuries and losing, and the Rams, the Cardinals playing well, who knows how this division can turn out, but it's going to be interesting to see how it does. Moving on to the next team, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, they played a very better game against the Chiefs and were able to get unfortunately weren't able to get the win, but they played their style of football once again, and it showed. They were able to get more consistent offense going. The only concern I have for them is Joe Burrow needs to find a way to get the ball to Jamar Chase more, because if they do, you know how scary that connection is and how many games he can help them win. So as long as they can get him involved in the offense, I think they should be fine. But a much more impressive game against the Chiefs, even though they weren't able to get the win. But we'll just have to see how they move on from this, having a Monday night game at home against the Commanders. If they fall to 0-3, then there might be some worries. T. Higgins might be back, though, so that should be good for them. Moving on to the next team, I have another team in the AFC North. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Starting off 0-2 is rough. It happens, but the way last week, I understand, going to Arrowhead to open the season is always tough, especially them coming off a Super Bowl. But blowing a 10-point lead in your home opener to the Raiders, a team that I think is growing, but I don't think could contend and make any noise in the AFC, is not a good look. Lamar didn't play well down the stretch. The defense just completely folded and just let the Raiders go and win the game. The Ravens had the game in the bag, but they didn't want to win it, and that's why they're 0-2. All right, moving on to the final team in the top 15, I have the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, they've looked very, very impressive so far. They've been shocked. Like, they played well against the Bills and then just destroyed the Rams, like I mentioned. Marvin Harrison, anyone who had him in fantasy week 1, me included, I was frustrated. But now, this is why you draft him in the second or third round, in my opinion. He went off against the Rams. I know the Rams don't have the best secondary, but at the same time, this is why Marvin Harrison went number 4 overall in the draft. He is that special. He is a one-of-a-kind talent. He played well, had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, both a 20-yard and an 80-yard touchdown. And him and Kyler could form a dangerous connection. Trey McBride was much involved in the offense. James Conner had a good game. This Cardinals offense seems like it's building chemistry and could be very dangerous. And the defense, Dennis Gardeck had 3 sacks on defense, and they were just able to manipulate and destroy the Rams on offense. And that's why they got the win. And I could see them making a lot of noise, and they got a good game against the Lions. Easily could be the game of the week coming up here, so we'll have to see how that goes. Moving into the top 10, at number 10, I have the San Francisco 49ers. I know it's just one loss for them, but I could see them derailing them possibly because McCaffrey's already out. Debo got hurt in that game and could be out a couple weeks. And then you had Kittle get hurt in practice today. So that's 3 core guys of their offense out. And unless IU can step up big, the Niners are going to be in very much trouble because Jordan Mason's had back-to-back 100-yard games, but defenses are eventually going to figure him out. He's not freaking Christian McCaffrey for crying out loud, but he's a decent running back, and Ayuk just needs to wake up and realize he got paid all that money, and he needs to play accordingly because he needs to play up to the standards of that contract. Because if he doesn't, it's just going to look like a terrible contract. But really, other than that, bad loss against the Vikings. We'll have to see how they respond against the Rams, which could be a very injury-riddled game for both teams going into the game. Moving on to number 9, I have the Dallas Cowboys at number 9. I think they got absolutely destroyed at home. That was their first home game since the Packers game, and they really didn't. They played exactly how they did in that game. Dak Prescott had 2 interceptions. They got completely destroyed by the Saints. And overall, the Saints just played their brand of football, and they were able to expose the Cowboys because of it. Moving on to the next team. I hate to do this, but it is the truth. I have the Eagles at number 8. I don't know what the heck is going on with them. They played a weird game against Green Bay. I gave them the excuse because of it, because it's week 1 rust. He was terrible. But I don't know what in the world I saw on that field Monday night. That was terrible. Like, terrible. They played this terrible game. Like I don't want to keep using, but it was that bad. The offense, how you not give it to Saquon Barkley on the first drive is beyond me. That is absolutely insane. And then not being able to move down the field with this offense, and then you give Saquon Barkley the ball on the next drive, and you see what he does. Like, I don't know what's going on. Nick Sirianni, I am fed up with him. I've been fed up with him since last year. If we're 1-3 at the bye week, I would fire him immediately. Like, that's how much I'm fed up with him. He's just a jerk. He really is. He thinks he's tough, but he really isn't. So, honestly, that's how I feel. And going into New Orleans this week, I don't feel confident whatsoever. And then you got to go to Tampa, and you're probably having A.J. Brown out for both of those games. But this is all I have to say. But this is what I have to say most importantly. Even though I don't care about the Saquon drop, so I'm not saying that's the reason we lost the game. So if anyone wants to say that, go right ahead. But I do not agree with that. I think, because if you think about it, it's 3rd and 3. Most of the time, what are head coaches doing there? They're running the ball, because at least if you don't get it, 30, 40 seconds go off the clock, and you can kick a field goal then. But if you're passing the ball on 3rd and 3, you go for it on 4th down. That is why Nick Sirianni is an idiot. He is so stupid, and I know I'm talking about him again, but that's how fed up I am with him. And let's just move on to the defense, and then I'll be done with this. The defense, you pay Bryce Hall $17 million a year, and he can't even get a pressure. He is ridiculous. That's what you need to trade for a pass rusher immediately. That's how bad it is. Your leading sacker was Milton Williams, which, don't get me wrong, is a good player, but he's your 3rd defensive tackle in the depth chart. And you had freaking Thomas Booker, who just made this team, had probably the best game of his life over guys like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Bryce Huff, like I said, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith is a joke. And then other guys like that. And then the secondary, Darius Slay is the most trash cornerback I've ever seen play the game. He is terrible. He gets cooked by anyone at this point. At this point, Kenny Golladay ruined his career ever since that touchdown. He has been downhill. So, but that's just my quick rant about them. I don't feel confident whatsoever. So we'll have to see what happens from there. All right, moving on to the next team. I have the Atlanta Falcons. They ended up beating the Eagles this week. Kirk Cousins looked like what they signed him for, that final drive, him being able to move down the field, and what I just talked about. So we'll have to see what happens from there. They've got their first win with Kirk Cousins, and they got the Chiefs tough Sunday night game, and we'll have to see what goes from there. All right, and moving on to the final team in the top 5, I have the Houston Texans. The Texans, they played an okay game. The offense did what they needed to do. C.J. Stroud was able to form a great connection with Nico Collins, and they were just able to play great defense on the other side of the ball, and that's why they won the game. So, but moving on to the top 5, At number 5, I have the Detroit Lions. Even though I know they lost, Jared Goff didn't play the best game, but at the same time, you know the Lions are going to bounce back from that. They're a good team. They were built to make the playoffs and even win a Super Bowl. So I think they could have a bounce back week this week. Maybe, I'm not sure, but we'll have to see. Moving on to number 4, I have the team that beat them in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, they played another great game. Mayfield looked great, just didn't make the mistakes, and he was able to get it to Chris Godwin this week. Him just forming different connections with the receivers is why the Bucs could win the division this year, in my opinion. So that's good to see. And then moving on to number 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. The Bills played an impressive game. I know Tua got hurt, but that was in the fourth quarter. Before that, they forced 3 interceptions on him. The defense looked good, and they lost their green dot, their captain on defense, and Bernard in the early first quarter, and just were able to respond tremendously to that. Josh Allen didn't even have to lift a finger because James Cook just went off. He was able to get a couple passes to Shakir Allen, but James Cook provided all the offense for them, and that's the reason they won the game. So, moving on to the top 3, this is just a surprise to me as it is to people watching. I have the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, they were able to do it again. Sam Darnold looked great, and they did what they needed to do. They handled their business against a good Niners team, and they were able to they got 5 sacks on Brock Purdy, and they forced an interception. So, and the Niners, once again, they haven't won in Minnesota since the 1990s, which I found very much insane. Moving on to second, I had the New Orleans Saints. They scored 91 points. I hope you understand it. 91 points in the first 2 weeks of the season. They barely could score maybe 20 in a span of 3 weeks last year. Their offense, led by Kubiak, it's completely changed the system, and he made Derek Carr look like a good QB. Rashid Shaheed has been a deep threat, getting Olave involved in this offense, and Alvin Kamara looking back in his prime again is a great sign for New Orleans, and then going and playing a Philadelphia team that has no idea what their direction is. They could easily start off 3-0 in my opinion. And moving on to number 1, I know this is not a surprise, but I had the Chiefs. Even though they didn't play their best game, they beat the Bengals at the end of the day, and they're 2-0. The only concern I have for them is losing Isaiah Pacheco, because he's been the heart and soul of their offense. He was one of the main reasons they went to the Super Bowl last year. So it should be interesting to see how they play without him for the next at least 6 to 8 weeks. Rashid Rice could be a very big threat. Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, all those guys are going to need to step up if they're going to continue to win. But that's my tier rankings for the week, and then let me just show you my picks for the week. These are my picks for the week. If you guys just want to take a look over that, I have the Jets over the Patriots, Browns over Giants, Saints over Eagles, Vikings over Texans, Bucks over Broncos, Packers over Titans, Bears over Colts, Chargers over Steelers, Seahawks over Dolphins, Raiders over Panthers, 49ers over Rams, Cardinals over Lions, Ravens over Cowboys, Chiefs over Falcons, Bills over Jaguars, and the Bengals over the Commanders. But other than that, that's going to wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.